last weekend, International Fight Week, biggest fight week of the year for the UFC. A lot of different activities and things are going on. One of the biggest things outside of the fights was the UFC Hall of Fame ceremony. George St. Pierre was inducted last weekend as the fighter in the modern wing, the most successful fighter that's ever been put into the Hall of Fame. But Jon Jones was also inducted for his fight, a great fight with Alexander Gustafsson, possibly the greatest light heavyweight title fight of all time. But unfortunately, in true Jon Jones fashion, it does not end the right way. Now, Dana said on multiple times, we can't get him into Vegas, not even for 12 hours. Without. But what has been proven time and time again is that the trouble seems to follow Jones, because he's gotten in trouble in Albuquerque, he's gotten in trouble in New York, he's gotten in trouble, but this time seems very serious. And Mark Raimondi just tweeted very recently that more details are coming out. And Jon Jones allegedly pulled a woman's hair and headbutted a police car, causing damage to the vehicle, according to the arrest report coming from the Las Vegas Metro PD. There's more going to be talked about as the day goes on ESPN, because the details are flooding in. I know what I felt initially, Ryan, but as a guy that's watched Jon Jones do so many special things inside the octagon, what do you think of the latest run-in that he's had outside of the octagon?
Well, I can be honest with you, DC. I don't have the personal relationship that you have with him. I don't have, any animosity or any emotion as it pertains to Jon Jones. I'm a fan, and I've been a fan of Jon Jones. I was a fan of the Gustafsson fight. I was a fan of watching you two guys do battle in the octagon 2 times. I was a fan of watching him against Shogun, against all these different people who I expected to beat Jon Jones or give Jon Jones a challenge. And so from that standpoint, I'm appreciative of what he's done for the UFC, what he's done for MMA. But when I think about who he is outside of the fight game, outside of the octagon, it actually only brings me sadness. It brings me sadness because it seems that he can't get out of his own way. And not only can't get out of his own way, he doesn't want to get out of his own way. He doesn't seem to be someone that is trying to get out of his own way. And when you have so much talent and when you've been blessed with so many opportunities, it's actually like spitting in the face of those who go to bat for you, of those who fight for you, of those who give you opportunity and opportunity after opportunity to be a good human. See, it's not about Jon Jones necessarily having to be the best of men or the perfect man. It's about Jon Jones doing things the right way in order to continue this career that truly would be one of the greatest of all time in UFC history. He's already sullied who he is as a fighter. There are some people who are never going to accept Jon Jones as the greatest of all time, never going to see Jon Jones as anything but a cheater because of what we know about him. But now to add, whether it's domestic violence, now to add drug charges, to add all of these things that encompass or embody who Jon Jones is, it's truly sadness, because his legacy will never be what it was supposed to be because of his behavior, not because of his output or success in the octagon.
Ryan, as a guy that has a real personal relationship with Jones in terms of professional, I said some things back in 2017 before we fought the second time. I spoke to mistakes and how when you make mistakes, they change you. Jones obviously doesn't learn from the mistakes. But I also take a bit of responsibility, because I think in a lot of situations, Ryan, you learn when you have to pull yourself up by the bootstraps. And I said on the Countdown show before the fight, the way Jon Jones makes changes is by losing to me. I didn't beat him. Chael Sonnen didn't beat him.
Right.
So many people didn't beat him. We never forced him to look in the mirror and evaluate his behaviors outside, because all the bad behavior still led to success.
Right.
And so why change it? Why change it? It's unfortunate. And I remember when I saw Jones and his family on the red carpet for the Hall of Fame, I'm so removed from that rivalry that I actually felt happy for him.
Right.
Because his little girls aren't babies no more.
Yeah.
They're growing up to be beautiful young women. And it looked like he had his family with him. He was going to be celebrated. And then he goes out and does something like that to remind me why I felt so strong about disliking him, because you start hearing these things and it's awful. It's actually really awful. And as the details come to light, it's actually going to be much more terrifying to think of the emotions that's tied to this whole thing.
Well, you know, DC.
One thing that stood out to me when I saw Jones, when I saw him on the red carpet, though, and I've got a lot of friends, Ryan, that are just sports fans. And you talk about the guys that party and live the hard life, the Jon Jones, the Dennis Rodman, Darryl Strawberry, right? Those guys, as they age, they start to wear the hard life on their face.
Yeah.
And Jon Jones now, you can see the hard life because he looks a lot older than he really is. He's still a young man, but he looks really old in his face, and so the hard life is showing. And one of my friends brought the Darryl Strawberry comparison to light, and I was thinking to myself, wow, they age. Like, they don't age like
DC,
you and I, Ryan.
You know what else,
like,
DC?
I'm not saying I look great. I'm not saying I look great, Ryan.
You are handsome.
They don't age like us,
Well,
because
DC,
they live the hard life, you know?
Yeah, the other thing I think about is I haven't had that type of rivalry with anyone, but I was good friends with Antonio Brown when we played in Pittsburgh, and then we had a falling out. And obviously doing this job, I started to learn some things about him that I kept to myself because I didn't feel like they pertained to football. And we had some experiences that didn't pertain to Antonio Brown playing football at the time. And then when it was an opportunity where those things collided, I spoke on them. And we had kind of this back and forth. And Antonio Brown was continuing to excel even though he had these certain behaviors. And then when those things collided with football, we saw his career kind of go down the drain. But then I would remember when he was outside of football, when the NFL and the rules and the regulations of the way that you have to be punished and legislated because you do certain things started to weigh on him. And then we'd see viral videos on Twitter or on social media and different things he was going through. To me, I never took pride in watching him go through that. I never felt good that Antonio Brown's talents didn't get an opportunity to be shown in stadiums. And what I did was think to myself, I hope that he gets it right. And so to see him in the Super Bowl play extremely well, to see the way that he was playing this year, those things excited me for him because I remember the relationship I had with him, but also the relationship that he had with football that was different than who he was in life. But the NFL has things in place to get your mind right. See, DC, you felt like you needed to beat Jon Jones to teach him a lesson because ultimately, UFC, there's Dana White, and the way he feels about fighters and the rules and regulations and the sanctions that are put on by the outside world that allows players to fight. But that's the only thing. As long as the rules say, okay, you're suspended for this time for doing this, then you get to come back. See, the NFL was different. So do you believe that the UFC needs to put something in place to legislate athletes, legislate fighters and the way that they behave away from the octagon? Or do you think that what Jon Jones has done this time finally keeps him out of the octagon for good, so maybe he does learn those life lessons that you feel like you had to teach him with your fist?
You know what's crazy, RC, is that we have a code of conduct. We actually have a code of conduct in the UFC. It's a matter of enforcing it. And, even at the height of our rivalry, when we sat in front of Joe Rogan and we yelled, we went back and forth and we called each other names and we got very personal in regards to our relationship, our spouses, and everything. I said, I don't want nothing life-threatening to happen to Jon Jones, regardless of what I feel about him professionally and personally. I never found pride, and I still don't find joy in the fact that he is not able to get over whatever demons he is dealing with in this moment and he's dealt with for so long. But there is a code of conduct, right? It's about finding and sticking to that code of conduct. But I think the biggest issue is, right, rap sheet, man, like there's been so many different things that have happened. But when you look at Jon Jones, the fighter, he's great. I mean, I've never been in there with anyone more talented. He's so smart. He can game plan. He can do things in a way that nobody else can. But it seems like outside, there is just no control. Comes from a great family. I mean, his dad used to tell me stories about watching me wrestle whenever Jon was a kid. It's on him, though, to get better. And I think Dana said something so smart and so, telling the other day. When he said He's not even disappointed anymore. It becomes the expectation. Ryan, when bad behavior becomes the expectation, that should be the biggest wake-up call for you to get it together, because there's no more disappointment.
Yeah.
So you got to get it right. So if there's a message for me, I take no pride in Jones being where he is today. And he's in the stuff right now. What I say to that man is just get it right, man. You got to find a way, RC, to just try to get it right, because it ain't even about the fight career right now. He's obviously made a ton of money because he goes away for so long. It's about getting the life right so that you can be the role model you need to be for those 3 young girls that he has, those beautiful daughters that he's raising.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.